Okay, about to go on, guys.
I heard you.
Well, I'm sitting here looking at myself. Hello, everyone out there. Welcome to What's Next. I'm the host, Matthew Quinn, and today we are going to be looking at the immersive scene. So we're going to find a little bit about what the immersive scene is all about and how it also kind of went through the pivot with the rest of us. And I'm very excited about our two guests. I'd like to get started and bring the first one out. Let's get Noah Nelson out here. Can we get Mr. Nelson?
Hello there.
It's good to see you. Good to see you. Noah is the founder of No Proscenium, a publication that's dedicated to the exploration of immersive work and experimental arts. And its sister site,
Everything Immersive.
Everything Immersive that's on Facebook or somewhere else. Kind of
Everythingimmersive.com is a website.
Oh, another site too.
And there's also a Facebook group of the same name. They are all part of the same interlocking series of things.
And then you are also the co-founder of LEA, the League of Experimental and Immersive Arts.
Experiential.
Thank you for that excellent correction. And you have a podcast of your own that you put up, I believe, and been on NPR. So you're a man, the immersive man. Welcome. Glad to be talking about this with you. And also in the studio, we're very lucky to have Miss Katelyn Schiller. Katelyn in the house. There, a nice entry. Look at that. Whoops. And so the award-winning actor, playwright, illustrator, and co-artistic director of Spy Brunch, LLC. And as a devised artist and performer, you've been on the front lines with the immersive scene, working with ABC projects, Coax, The Sideshow, and your own Spy Brunch production, Safe House 77, 82, and of course The Pod, which was at the Hollywood Fringe.
Yes, it was, man.
That's the small world, the interchanging web. So on top of all that, you've also are a virtual reality trained actor.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and currently for special runs, you can be seen in the Tempest as Prospero, may we add, and put on, well, I found this interesting. It's put up by a game company, Tender Claws.
Yes. Yeah. Tender Claws is a smaller game company that has been really making the effort to branch out and bring live actors, live performers, video game setting, this whole world where you can run into something and it's there and it's commenting and it's talking to you and it says like, why did you just throw that glass against the wall? Are you having a bad day? Like, it's
good
just
things for now. Good things for now. And also, and we're going to hear more about that and all the fun you're having with that. And you're going to possibly give us the secret of how we can find you in that in-person VR game Under Presents. The Under Presents. You can be, you're there now. You're somewhere. You're there.
I'm what?
You're there now. You could be there now if they wanted to find you in the virtual reality game.
Not now. Like if you do find me in there, I'm physically there talking to you in the moment. So like not right now, but yes, maybe later.
Really there. All right. Well, we're going to hear about all of that and Noah. So thank you guys for coming here and hearing about all you guys do. And let's talk. I normally start this show. We try to have the guests give us their pivot moment. So we all woke up to January, big plans, big touring, shows, all of that. And about mid-March, we got the idea that things were going to change. And so I just want to kind of a small setup. We'll talk more about details. I know you've got a lot of stuff going on. But what was your kind of pivot moment in that mid-March? Noah, let's start with you.
Okay. I was tracking COVID actually from like the end of December, because at the end of March we were going to have a 3-day long summit and festival for immersive work that was going to take place at the Pasadena Playhouse. We had people coming in from all over the world, so from South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Paris, London, you name it, like all pretty much every continent we had someone dropping in from. And as COVID started to go around, it got more and more tense. And we literally were supposed to be March 27th, 28th, and 29th. The week that the NBA called it quits for the season, we and shut everything down. 2 days before, we shut down what we were going to do because it became obvious. We got word that the city and county were going to put a squash on any gatherings larger than 200 people. And we were just like, all right, here we go. Still dealing with the fallout from that. We didn't have any time to mourn. We had to pivot very quickly. And, No Pro has the honor of being the hub for immersive work of a certain type, not just in Los Angeles, but the country and sometimes the world. And we're very honored and humbled to be able to be that for people. And really quickly, we had to see what folks were doing, and folks started adapting their work. They started jumping onto Zoom. They started experimenting with alternate reality games. They started modifying their escape rooms into forms that could be done by people, watching people do stuff on GoPros. And really quickly, we started cataloging it. And the more we cataloged, the more people made, which was the exact dynamic when we started covering Immersive in LA 7 years ago. The more we cataloged it, the more people made. And so we knew we just had to keep on doing that. And so that just took us right into the summer. And we've seen so many different forms pop up since then, which we'll get into over all of this.
Yeah, and quick too, and this is great. When you talk cataloging, are you talking about like posting it or just marking it? Like, what's that specifically mean?
It's funny because like we launched the Everything Immersive site like in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
We have newsletters, we have the websites, and like on EI, the website, it's now self-service. If someone has a show that fits in our wheelhouse, they submit it. We make sure that it's not just like a Zoom reading of Hamlet, which people will try and drop in. It's like, here, we're reading Hamlet on Zoom. It's immersive. No, it's not.
Right.
Please stop. No, seriously.
Well,
Stop.
And in fairness, but so with that, and this is a good point. And I see how catalog ties in. And we've had this talk before, back in the before times, is this definition of immersive and this kind of like, what is it? And I imagine it's been kind of up again, another wave of that, right? Because like you said, some things are going to consider, like I'm interacting with you. I'm like in a chat room.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, we cover anything that's experiential or immersive, right? Mm-hmm. So, but there's an elasticity between the performer and the audience member. Mm-hmm. If the critical thing for us is what is the audience's role? We actually have a little questionnaire now thing, and it's like if someone tells us, the audience doesn't have a role, you don't belong in our wheelhouse, right?
Okay.
It can't just be sit there and let me entertain you. We don't need to break out our spotlights for that. There are other places. The irony right now is in the current time is that people don't know where those other places are. Well, if you're doing a Zoom show as of today, Zoom's got its own storefront called On Zoom. Mm-hmm. And you can use that to sell whatever you're selling. I don't know what the details are, but like it's up on The Verge if you want to check it out.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Just dropped today.
Yep.
For our stuff, is it interactive? Is there some element there? Do you have some agency in the world, be it narrative or emotional? Is what you're doing not just changing the performance in the way that like laughter or clapping changes the performance, but is actually shaping what's happening? And we like it fuzzy. We don't like it to be like a hard, clear line because there's stuff that surprises and delights us all the time.
I just want to bring it over to Katelyn for a second, because you started kind of more traditional theater. I met you in Fringes doing more traditional play.
Yes, it was 2015.
Wow,
Matt.
Thanks for remembering that.
Yeah, Matt got me a home for my very first solo show, and such comfort and love, and just real LA theater could be. And it can be a place of comfort and friendship and triumph and lifting everyone up, no matter their circumstances and their means to produce theater. So I just frickin' love you and your people.
Back to the theater peeps are good. And you bring an interesting crossover with this conversation in terms of, as a traditional theater piece going to interact, immersive theater, and then virtual, this sense of the different types and what is, you feel very clear of like what is immersive, what's not, and that kind of definition.
I mean, I think Noah's got a great handle on it. I'm still figuring it out. I think it's still a format that is being developed and remade in lots of different ways, but I knew as soon as I found it that fourth wall was broken. I never could unbreak it. Like it's the connection you get from an audience member and yourself, like in an intimate moment when you're like, hey, you matter, you're important to this moment.
Yeah.
Character that's grounded, your experience is my experience, let's go do something together. And like, even if we're in it's an escapism world, it's not necessarily our world, it is a concrete memory that we could then take home and hold. And so I've had some of the most immaculate performances just because it was a real flesh loving person giving me their heart and soul in the moment.
I think a critical thing here, something Katelyn just said, like the memory. So if your audience, to know whether or not you're making immersive experiential work, the kind that we're interested in, the kind that we're going to take the time to help get out into the world, the question is this: when it's all said and done, are your audience members talking about what they saw and heard or about what they did? And if they're talking about what they did, congratulations.
That's interesting.
Immersive. If they're talking about what they saw and heard, congratulations, you're making a wonderful, entertaining performance.
All right. I like that. And I imagine, as you're both kind of implying too, that it's in flux, it's fuzzy, it's changing, we're learning. And if anything, and bringing this back to what's happened in the last 8 months, with new technology and with different ways that we're able to connect with each other, be it either virtual reality goggles or Zoom rooms or all that. Would you say the immersive scene with all these types, and maybe you can talk, both of you, just about the different types, and then, because some of them, like virtual reality, there's no change. Like, people aren't meeting in real life. Like, it seems like any show where there's a meeting in real life had an impact like traditional theater would be. Whereas some, like virtual, may have actually excelled. Something, I mean, either of you could probably take that.
Yeah, I mean, Katelyn, I think, can talk really deeply to some of the stuff in VR, and I want to give her the floor in a second. But just to frame it all, just so people know, in terms of the amount of volume of productions that we're covering at NoPro and at Everything Immersive, there has been no dip in volume for us this year. And in fact, in terms of what we're covering more shows in more places, technically, because everything's virtual. So it means if someone's doing something in Georgia or in Raleigh or in London that we normally couldn't get to, we can send someone because it's online. And that, it's really fun to have that cat out of the bag. But there are a lot of different qualities. But the most interesting stuff in my book is the kind of work that Katelyn's been involved in, and the work that's been going on at Tender Claws. So because that's seriously embodied work, and I'd love to hear talk about it, because I haven't had a chance this entire time while lockdown. I haven't had a chance to talk to Katelyn, so I was like, and now we're talking to Katelyn. Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, Noah actually helped get me the job. Yeah, to for this performance. So yeah, it's been
And before you go into it, to pitching from what Noah said, and actually let me give a well-earned screen shout out from Peter Michael Marino about NoPro. We're very generous and interactive to the non-immersive. So a little shout out for the general love for you. And Peter also talking about wait, hold on. I'm sorry. The Peter comment just threw my head. Let's go back to virtual reality and talking about the different that kind of pivot for that and how that kind of worked.
Yeah, I mean, I know a majority of like the pivot that happened for most immersive creators was like, oh shit, we got to move to Zoom. Like that's sort of like, we don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. So why don't we give them our fans, people who really want to stay connected, a little like holdover. And then, we got to wait a little. So we're going to make another little holdover. And it just sort of, when it comes to a Zoom show, and I've yet to see one that brings me in, because there's so much that people can do on their computers that they already associate with what they do on a daily basis, where they look for entertainment and how much they can connect. And I think that's been the biggest struggle for immersive theater, is like, you want to bring people in and they are a part of the story, but they're also we're very physically distanced from each other, and you can feel it, because that was the beauty of immersive theater, is like, you can feel the bodies, you can feel the heat, you can smell someone's breath, that creates its own magic in a way. And if that's there and you're just like, I know I'm here and I'm present and I'm giving you all my attention, but I'm still missing that element. But when I didn't know if that would translate to VR, because I hadn't, before this job, I hadn't had much experience in it. I've been a long-time gamer. Like, I love video games of all capacities. And I was skeptical because it took me long enough to get a PS4 when I was a Nintendo girl for all of my life. So I was like, an Oculus Quest VR, I don't know. But then when I got in there, as terrifying as it was, because I was like, this is not the room I was just in. These are not my hands. You want me to perform in this? Like, I can't sense anyone. I can't even like go up to you and read your facial expression, because you're an avatar and you don't necessarily have a facial expression. So I really quickly had to learn how to read subtle body movements, how people tilted their heads, and how they, with the veracity that they zipped across, a certain part of the map, how involved they were in an activity that I was like making up on the fly for us all to do together. But what I found is that it was shocking. It was almost a little scary how connected and intimate it felt. And I think I said in an interview once that it was like, is it theater? Is VR theater? And I was like, honestly, I feel like it is in its own way, but I feel these people that I have developed friendships with in character, they very much become like my very real imaginary friends. And I've had players reach out to me and say that to me after we've spent, hours together in this virtual world. And I think people are picking up on that, and VR in particular, as we've been like, okay, Zoom is our only way that we mostly know how to make theater. And as much as it sucks as an artist to need to learn new formats and learn to adjust, when I was like, I just learned, how to use Slack. So yeah, I think it's very powerful, and I think it's going to continue to be utilized, and and people are going to get more and more comfortable with it. But it's a big ask. It is a big ask of audience members to sort of accept that aspect, because when it comes, people are ready to do theater, but when you say it's in a video game or on a console, it seems to devalue the legitimacy. And I think that's just because it's a new format.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot more, there's a lot more to do, but the very beginnings of what we have accomplished have been astronomically just insane, of just sensing everyday people, because that's a big part of immersive, is like, how do I create a really interesting experience that makes you feel special and want you to come back and validates your what you need and what you need to see. So yeah.
Well, I think, and no, I know you have comments to say with that. I will say that connection, whether it's theater or not, there's been a lot of debate about that. And I tend to bring it all, like you're saying, with them, I'm trying to let more in for that to happen. And if anything, virtual does feel like a real connection, because both you digitally are kind of linked in together through the computer, even more so with Zoom. So I do, yeah.
But I think it also has to do because you're using your body, because it is motion capture. It like I said, it fake creates that sense of like there are other people in this room because I can see them. I know I can't necessarily feel them, and that seems to sort of fake the same sensation, which is weird and cool.
A lot of it with immersive, it's doing it right. Like I talk about the center of gravity being between the performer and the audience, right? Like there is an invisible thread between those folks. And if the center of gravity is held between an audience member and a performer, then you're in that immersive mindset. You're in that experiential mindset. If the center of gravity is wholly with the performers, then we're watching a show. And if it's wholly with the audience, then we're playing a game. Right. And it's keeping it balanced, keeping it between the two, where it winds up being an act of co-creation. And it's kind of like, it's like the idea that like planets have like a habitable zone, or like solar systems do, right? Does it fall in that habitable zone? Right? Is that where the world is that you've built? And so, I've seen a chunk of Zoom shows. And Zoom's got issues, baby. Zoom's got all kinds of things that are wrong with it. I've seen two good models for it. One is the model that's basically this is a community storytelling affair. So Siobhan O'Loughlin, who is a solo performer, does a show called Broken Bone Bathtub when in the before times, her stuff tended to be she was doing a solo performance in a bathtub, and there'd be a bit of call and response stuff with the audience, right? It's not immersive in the sense of like, got a lot of agency, but it creates a communal setting, and she's drawing stories out of us, right? So it's in our wheelhouse. She's adapted to Zoom so that she's got like 25, 30 people or sometimes more in a Zoom call, and she'll be calling on different people to like share that stories in the same way. Right. So she's managed to adapt her format into Zoom. Then you have something that I just saw last week, a piece called The Sleepover, which originally showed up. We did this little invitational, After Hours Theater Company did an invitational over, the little theater thing behind the Target in West Hollywood, right? So like they were doing a show, they had a spare weekend because their actors got, on CW shows up in Vancouver and they couldn't finish their show. So like they won't give us our money back. Let's throw a little mini festival. And we did this invitational thing, invited some people through. They made 48-hour film fest style pieces, some of which were absolutely amazing. This is one of the amazing ones. It recreated the feeling of going to a sleepover in the 1990s. And so in that piece, there was like we were all instantly, you're all 11th graders, and you knew it because, you were not 11-year-olds. You were treated by the actors came in as like, kids, you're here, you're early, right? Come on, Mikey's inside, he's waiting for you. And you're like, okay. And then there was like Goosebumps books and like snacks and Pop Rocks and like Snick was running and like it had such a vibe to it. And they've taken all of that and they've stuck it onto Zoom and managed with a couple of little tricks here and there to still give you that vibe and still give you moments where you're called upon to like take part in the story and move it along, and you're being let in on a secret. And so it's totally different from what Siobhan's doing. It's totally different from what, say, a Creep show is in the real world, or what Darren Lynn Bousman's about to do with his One Day Die show, where you're getting like a box and then like there's going to be performances, but it's still managing to play with the audience members, with being the critical thing.
So are these shows, this show, it was going to be a live in person, in real life, an IRL show where you're going to show up to a camp.
And like it was planned to be, they were going to do it at Fringe this year. Like they had created the show whole cloth in 48 hours, like last summer, like in like August of last year. It was way more fun than it had any business being. And then they were going to remount it and do a Fringe version and keep on, evolving it. And we didn't get to have that this year. And I'm really sad. I mean, obviously I'm sad because we didn't get to have this stuff, but like it would have been so good. And it would have been great for people's like first it's a really great first immersive. And when it comes to like this Zoom immersive stuff, I think it's a really great first Zoom immersive. And I think they've called their theater company, I think Cricklewood, I think is what they're calling themselves. But then Catnip Productions, which is Katie Foley, who did Best Night Ever. They're producing it for them because they've done a lot of stuff in Zoom that has that sort of like, trying to take, they taking their immersive improvised sitcom thing into Zoom, and they've been playing around with that. Yeah.
Would you say you made an interesting comment that you didn't see the number of shows dip, that it's kind of been the same amount. Now, is it how many are like retooling and they had a live run and now they're retooling it for Zoom? How many are like, I'm building a new one for Zoom? We're in COVID now. I get it. And, how would you kind of break down? How did that stay normal? Because in real life ones are all, as far as they're pretty much not happening, right?
No, I mean not in LA,
right.
But like, look, a small percentage of shows are adaptations of material that already existed or were in planning stages. And those tend to be better than the stuff that's been whole cloth thrown together for Zoom, because people aren't trying to figure out what story they're trying to tell and what the roles that the audience is going to be, and then try and figure out how to use these blasted tools, right?
Yeah.
And you'd think it'd be the other way around. You'd think that like, oh, we got to build for Zoom up. Zoom is terrible. It is an awful, hideous curse that has been delivered upon mankind. And if I was a conspiracy theorist person, I would say, look to the people who made Zoom as to where COVID came from. But I'm not. I'm not saying that right now. I mean, their stock is up and everyone's using it because of this thing, but I'm not saying that. All right, please don't short their stock at 11:35 tomorrow morning. Please don't do that.
I will use this time to say that we use StreamYard, and although they don't sponsor us, we have no problem. And go for the little guy. Go for StreamYard.
Yeah. So people who've already made their content, it tends to be able to translate well. There's some stuff. There's a lot more stuff is being made originally for Zoom, but Zoom is not the only game in town. People are doing stuff on the telephone, and some of the telephone stuff is really great because it's just people talking into telephones and having conversations. There are people who are messing around with things like Gather, which you can find at gather.town, which is this like conference tool that is like little 8-bit, 16-bit era characters you're going around. You went to a party in it the other day, right?
So much fun. I think that was like, I've been to Zoom parties, but this was like, you can build, and I was like, immersive creators run. This is great stuff. You can build like a little 8-bit world with like chairs and plants and things or whatever, spaceships. And then you can invite your friends and give them the link and they can show up as this little avatar person of themselves. But what's interesting about this is that the Zoom interaction or the video live interaction happens around proximity. So you're able to take your avatar and run around the map and like think things out, and then you can run up to your friends, and the closer you are, then their screen pops up, and so you get close to the avatar, and then it's like, and again, it's creating that sense of like bodily autonomy and where you are in versus and a sense of choice, I think, of where you can move and not just like I just have to sit here in front of my screen. And I'm really excited about it. Yes.
There's folks who are starting to experiment with that. There's a company up in San Francisco called Dragon Productions that has a show they're putting up. Like I went to a rehearsal last night. There's still a lot of bugs in terms of like how it's going to work for getting actual show stuff into people's hands. There's a lot of balancing to be done, particularly that proximity video. But a lot of the stuff can be solved using the immersive techniques. Like it can be solved by anchoring audience to character, making sure that actors are acting like hosts and not just like performers, right? It's not just their job to come in and like hit your marks, say your lines. It's your job to take care of the audience, right? That's something they're doing at the sleepover. Your role is you're a guest at Mikey's house. They're trying to take care of you. I mean, they fail a lot, but that's part of the fun is that they're failing at taking care of you, right? Yeah. That relationship, right? It is ultimately, it's about relationships. That's what's interesting about the work.
Yeah. And with that now, so that seemed very clear in real life. You're taking care of, you physically are there with them. How does then that translate? Are they taking care of them through the computer screen? And like Katelyn, you're like in this 3D world, like you're talking about where you can walk around, and as you approach people, you get to hear them and see them. How does that, like Noah's saying, how does that work from the actor's point of view, the importance of that and what you see from doing it on stage in a virtual world? Or the immersive world from an actor's point of view.
Are you saying like as in taking care of the audience members?
Taking care of the audience, the rules. I love the term, the rules of immersive, and kind of like how you as an actor are responsible that as much as the game is set up or the rules of the space are, you're the one connecting, being the host.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of having an immersive experience in a video game, because the rules are already very concrete, very set. Like you can't open a door if you can't open a door, and that is a godsend. And the engine that they created is it's really malleable. There's just so much storytelling that can happen, and the players do tell their own stories. All of the avatars that when you go in, you put your headset on, you go into the desert of the underpresents. You can't speak. Like you you can hear the actors speak. There are live shows happening in the cabaret theater and on this part of the map, but they are forced to express and tell stories through their body, and they have these masks on their face that they can take off, and there's like secret spell recipes that they can learn, and then some people are ridiculously fast, and there's like 100. There's a crap ton of spells in this game, but they're like, oh, it's my birthday today, or here I made a cupcake, and I'm like, oh, is it your, whether or not it is, like I'm going to take that impulse, like what they did, and then we're going to go do a scene about it. We're going to throw you a birthday party in the game. But
so much fun, so much play.
A lot of play.
It's pretty
play. And that's important not only now, but I realize as the artists are trying to pivot with all this and are looking at this new tech, and like Peter Michael Marino's in the house is talking about this too. The ones that are succeeding, you've got to play with it. You can't sit here, overthink it. You've got to do it and play. And teaching the play for the audience is so important now because we need it. It really is. So in regards then to this bigger scope, so with this connectivity, Noah, you mentioned some of the Zoom people changing over for Zoom. How, in also painting kind of what the immersive scene is, how are these different groups and immersive companies kind of pivoting during this?
Well, the folks, I mean, look, we're talking a lot about the virtual stuff. There's also a lot of people doing drive-in things, and that's having a range of reactions. There are people in New York who are doing stuff in storefronts. There's audio tour accessible things, so there's a lot of pod plays going on. I love a good pod play. Mm-hmm. There's a pod play that Jessica Hanna is producing that's going to be down by the river. It started today, actually. You've got folks like Capital W who are doing work just to stay in LA. They're doing work out at have you seen it? Did you see Fire Season?
No, I have friends who've seen it and they love it.
It's fantastic. And there you have Monica Miklas is broadcasting via FM radio, and you're able to walk around the Paramount Ranch. So it's socially distanced, but you're still getting a live performance and you're still in an embodied space. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, what if you're given free reign while like a Mike Daisey show was going on? Like that's kind of how it feels. Right. So, you're not, it was the best stuff right now. Doesn't feel like we've been limited by what's happening. Mm-hmm. It feels like a 5 obstructions type scenario where it's like, I'm going to give you this weird thing to overcome. Now get creative. And wonderful work is being made. And we're going to see, and then other things where it's like the drive-through thing. There's been a lot of negative feedback for some of these drive-through haunt things, right? Like people are not necessarily happy. And then others we're getting fine feedback. And usually it comes down to how much candy gets dumped into your car at the end of it. So just remember, people want their candy. Mm-hmm. So is there food involved, right? So if we're doing a drive-in.
That's very important. Very important. Yes, I agree.
right? You know, and give the good stuff, right? Not the minis. We're talking the full bars. If someone's paying $60 or $70 for a car to go through your haunt drive-in, I want an MF full. Like, you know what? Don't even give me 2 Reese's. Give me the king size Reese's. Give me the 4. Or spring for the double, the big cup. All right. Don't be cheap. You're charging $90 for someone to come to a drive-in to watch community theater. People, I'm kidding.
Let's go. Well, no, but that's a good point, and I think that's a great point. Besides all the candy references, which I love, they're immersive. One of the fascinating thing is theater in general, and this again, theater and separate from immersive has been theater. Live theater is always traditionally like downplayed. Like tickets are $10. Actually, just come $5. No, just come. There's a downplaying of the ticket price and all that. And immersive is very impressive because it does demand a much higher price, and it gets it. And tickets can be, 20, 50, but 100 plus isn't unheard of. And I'm wondering now, as things go online and things go drive-in, the number of shows have stayed the same. But how has been, in your guesstimate, the audience going, and then the price,
Katelyn, you can talk a little about how the Under changed its own value structure a little bit when Tempest hit.
Oh, they changed. Okay.
What? It changes on value structure?
Suddenly there was a ticket price that was different from what it was before. Well,
I mean, I noticed like people taking Zoom shows to online immersive. I think people were afraid first to start charging, typical immersive prices, even though like we do charge immersive higher prices because you're not just watching a story, you're a part of the story, you're interwoven into it, and we're also paying for all the legal things that could possibly go wrong in those situations.
And the capacity is always a lot less too, right?
Yes.
A 99 seat theater.
Really like snacks and drinks, and you want to make sure that you're not just like it is an evening, like it's a full, like you won't have to go out to dinner, like you can have your drinks and a snack and like you can, you might get split up and then you get to come back and talk about it. But yeah, there was a big transition when COVID hit, and I had been training in the VR and been in the game for a while, and it was harrowing to watch so many people fall out of work. It was just harrowing. But Tender Claws, I saw, I don't know, bless their sweet darling hearts. Cause for a while it felt like, the 18 or 20 of us on the cast were like some of the only people working in the world for a while. And that was just like serendipitous and crazy. And they were like, oh, we have these actors and people are really invested in them and like interacting with them. So, and they made a whole show. They made a world. So imagine Shakespeare's Tempest, one of the hardest things to put on stage. You're going to need a whole lot of bed sheets or projection mapping or whatever. But
for ACT, that's how ACT did it. They got a lot of money, but they used bed sheets and mapping.
Yeah. But so they were able to, like, if you could see that ship on the waves, on fire, literally see it, and have one single actor walk you through the story of the Tempest, but you're not just watching the Tempest. No, you were being asked to interact and be characters, to jump into these scenes and to make choices with these characters. And like, as actors, we have to like go off what you're doing. We're going to cast you. We're going to comment on what you're saying. We're going to give you lines to say, and you can act them out. So they created the Tempest Experience, and it was a 45 minutes to an hour, and it was like 4 to 5 players, and you got one actor, and it's just magical. And we opened, I think, July 9th, and we just ended our first run. But tickets, when you think about the Under Presents and people who buy the game, like you buy a ticket to like it's $20 to buy the game, but you could technically get thousands of hours of individual immersive time with live actors. That is unheard of in the real immersive theater world. Like, these gamers did not realize like how very spoiled they were, but they were spoiled because they worked at it. Like, they were like, I'm going to get on, I'm going to see if there's an actor in there, I'm going to go look for him and see if we can get a moment and be interwoven in a story.
So cool.
but then the Tempest, like, you were guaranteed to have an actor who would see you, who would acknowledge you, and it was just, we got to be this ragtag like theater ensemble together just for an hour, and you knew that this show was never going to happen. You played Miranda, you played Ferdinand. We might have thrown some improvised characters in there. And we were really encouraged as actors, because we would each go off and take a different group of people to give our own spin to the show. And so you could go multiple times and you could get a different actor and they might do something a little different. And that was always really exciting. But this show is $15. Like, the game, $15, and like, but we can't. But the gaming world, and this is something that I'm coming up against, where we're trying to develop more online-based immersive shows for my company that I work with, Nick Reinwald Jones by Brunch. How to navigate this new sort of uncanny valley, is that the word, between immersive and gaming? I think this strange place that's never really been spoken to before, because gamers have a lot of expectations. Theater people have different, but they're not as catered to, because they know they're going to show up and they're paying for an experience and they can go home and not like it. Gamers are much more like, my money is my opinion. If I disapprove of something, I will go and I will rip your game a new one on the game review site. And so there's a lot more risk there. But with risk,
much more demanding audience, way more demanding audience by far.
So we should, like, they should have charged more, but because it was the first time, I don't know, like the literal first time, but one of the first instances where we were asking people to buy a ticket even if they had already purchased the game. So like, this, what is this, extra downloadable content, or like, is it like, what am I actually getting? Right. And I think that's been the trickiest part, to navigate this new place of branding and making it okay to ask for more. Yeah.
And theater, your mouth, God's ears. I think traditional theater is still struggling with that. All the Zoom stuff is pretty much free. I think immersive is cracking that nut, and I appreciate the kind of immersive gamer line, because that is changing more. And quite frankly, this new technology is forcing us to learn this faster. This is a growth spurt. Noah, please.
Also be clear. And I know there's a clip to run of Tempest.
Oh, yes.
It'd be easier for people to see. Yeah. So I know Miles has the clip ready. So why don't we just run the clip and people can see
we're actually chatting as Katelyn quickly calls up. Katelyn's so techno. She's just like, I'm going to make it happen.
That's right. Yeah, you're doing it.
You're going to do it. Are you ready? Wait, it's not up yet. You got to share the screen first.
Yeah, I was gonna set it up.
I got it. So we're just talking.
Welcome. Okay. This is to the Tempest, which will I can't say exactly what dates yet because the tender clause isn't announced, but we will be featured again for a short amount of time at the Rain Dance Festival in London in end of October, early November. So this
Excellent. That's looking good. And bring it on up.
Let's set the stage. Put on your headset. Imagine a ship at sea. The original story of Tempest. A production sunk. A theater closed. But I, the actor, am live, ready to perform my role. Good Prospero will bring the play to life with the help of my magic and you, my spirits. We are ready now to perform together. Approach my area. Come.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry.
Wow. So that's a story where you can just wander around through that? Is that basically what people are doing?
I mean, you are guided. You are
like Noah said, the actor is a host.
Yes.
The actor is bringing you through.
It's trickier because we're acting and hosting, but we are also your stage managers and we are assigning you costumes. So all of this, I'm multitasking. I have all the tools I need, and while I'm performing for you, I'm flipping through buttons and knowing and centering, focusing on certain players and who can I teleport to certain areas because they're now being featured as a main character. Picking up flashlights and giving them to players and be like, you light the beautiful actor. Yes. You're an ensemble. We believe in this together. Do you believe you're on a boat? Show me believe that you're covered in water and that you're fearing for your life. And they're all silently
oh, great.
Yeah.
And just the way that relates to the price thing, right? So I know, Matt, you're excited about how Immersive is able to charge a lot more on the front end, but remember, only Randy Weiner's making any money, right? Only Sleep No More was churning through, and that's because they have the bar attached, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you think about what Katelyn's saying right here, it's $15 a head, it's five audience members, so that's some pretty easy math there. We're talking about less than $100 coming in per show. There's all the work that was done to make the world, which is building the set, right? Mm-hmm. So those folks had to have gotten paid. You're running the actors, and they were hourly, the way it was set up there, if memory serves, and they're one-man banding it, right? They're doing everything Katelyn's talking about, and that means they're not able to, just be the one thing. We've seen this in media before, right? We see it a lot with journalists. You need to be your engineer and your photographer and your writing, and there's no one at copy, so everything's going to go out with typos, and then everyone's going to comment about how you misspelled the word don't and ignore the fact that the story was completely accurate, right? So there's a lot that's being pushed off the externalities of it all. And even when an immersive show is coming through and there's a fair amount of there might be a high ticket price, it's still a thin margin, right? We're not there yet.
Yeah, no. And listen, I mean it. Yeah, it's good from being a more traditional theater person. It proves the point, like Katelyn was saying, you've got to ask for it. I saw an article where theater is falling down the same trap as newspapers when they went online. And newspapers just gave information. Now the New York Times wants $1 for 4 weeks of their newspaper. They're slowly kind of chugging back. So thank you for that. I want to get back because I do feel that there is such a wide realm of immersive theater and hearing, we've got a good taste of virtual, some of the Zoom. You've mentioned some of the drive-in theaters and all that. What are some, if any others that you can come to mind, either of you? And then what are some of the unique benefits that have happened or positive, benefits is a bad word, silver linings of all this that has brought up creativity or new audiences or whatever?
Looks like we lost Katelyn. I think the biggest thing, the biggest silver lining is being able to, have artists and audiences connecting when space isn't a limiting factor, right? Folks on the West Coast getting to see a show that's made by folks in London, folks in Hong Kong getting to check out a production that's happening, folks from Chicago. That is a really great thing. And, to a point, I mean, Ezra had a comment in here about, a show called Super Duper that he thought was great. That hasn't popped up on the radar even, right? We've got almost 10,000 people. We got 8,800 people in the Everything Immersive group, and no one's brought that into the group. So we're still in the zone where even though there are hundreds and thousands of people who are actively seeking out this material, there's still folks working off to the side somewhere who are just completely, they're not connected to the superhighway yet. So if Ezra's still watching, I'd say bring them in, have them come into the ecosystem, right? There's a lot of people looking for stuff. And if it's that good, they'll get supercharged because this audience, the core audience for this stuff is really passionate and they carry the voice forward. But that's something we're still seeing is folks just, they're somewhere out there on their own island. And there's tons of work like that. we talked a lot about the Tempest. There's other things in VR where people are doing, little tiny groups are doing stuff on their own. There's a lot of interesting work happening in academia that's crossing over and being done like VR chat. There's like a short play series done by some Black creators, I think mostly based out of New York, but it's all happening in VR chat. That's really great. You've got things like, I don't know if it might be in North Carolina, or like LA creators are making a show that's being produced by a theater on the East Coast, and they don't have to travel. They're making it here, and then it's being carried forward by these other theater companies and just kind of weaving the world together. There's been hundreds. We've had hundreds of things if you go to everythingimmersive.com and you click on any of the categories, you'll see there's just hundreds, and there's if you click on the main thing, there's hundreds of shows. And someone the other day said they looked at it and it was like looking at Netflix on Mars. And I was like, I love that. It's Netflix on Mars. So that's how you troll through there and see what's up. And if you know of stuff that's out there in the world that is in there, tell the creators, come on by, get it listed, right? That's the way to go.
Excellent advice, Noah, and putting both up, everythingimmersive.com and then also noproscenium.com. Is there any difference with that? Should they
if you're listing something, go to everythingimmersive.com. And then if you're also a Facebook person, the Everything Immersive group is also, have the creators join that and, read the rules to see how they should format a post and submit the post. And then they'll, the moderators will approve it and it'll go. It used to be like, we didn't used to do post approval like as of like 2 weeks ago. We had to turn it on for some reasons. And then now that we've turned it on, we'll probably never go back because we're very particular about our format because of the Hollywood Fringe, because we made that group about 2 months before a Hollywood Fringe. And we quickly saw people were posting about their show 5-6 times like a day. And we're like, no, you post once. You post once, you're not going to spam this group out of existence. And so we're, that's why we are the way we are, because producers just like to bang, 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 bang. And we love it, but that's what the comments are for. So, and it's all self-serve. The EI site is self-serve because it used to just be myself and Katelyn, we still got to do some work on it, but, getting people's press releases and then converting them into posts is tedious. So, and when you're doing it at scale and you're dealing with 50 a week and you're not getting paid, no, y'all can do it. So.
Well, it's great advice, and it really is a phenomenal resource. Definitely check out the threads on what to post. I'm learning as well as a testifier. We had our exchange, but it's great. It's very professional, and it's a really useful thing. As Noah said, there is so much out there, such a variety, and it brings it all together, and you're getting reviews, and also something we're all mentioning too, a community. This is what's really important too. And I imagine the immersive communities, like a lot of the others, coming together, problem solving. Hey, how do you do that? I remember seeing Monica Miklas asking about radio, wanting to get one, putting it out there and people looking. It really is. Again, another plus side, I guess I'm getting at, are people really coming together communally to solve these problems, comfort, not hold, like fake hold. And that is a great a silver lining of this. Katelyn, for you, what's kind of up next? You mentioned Tempest is kind of getting itself going. What can we find at your site, spybrunch.com?
Yeah. So we had been planning to do this big show that we'd worked on for most of last year called Safe House 82, which was the sequel to Safe House 87, where you got to go to an immersive party, but you were then recruited into the CIA. And that was really fun. And we were really trying to push some new bounds with the immersive jump there, but COVID hit, and then we had to reassess, and we had other things and many shows, but it's taken a while because we realized that, oh man, we really want to wait to put something out there until we know it's something that's is a flexible format. And so we just completed a beta test trial run of our latest production, which I'm really excited about. And I'm also very scared, and it's great.
The best. That's the best.
It's called Sherwood and Nottingham, and it's an interactive epic. So what we're trying to figure out is combining all of these things, like, you know, live Zoom calls, active chats, forum discussion, maybe experience with applications like Gather.town, like we said, for proximity and for people to like run around and run into live actors. So we've basically created this online world, and when you buy a ticket to this, you become a citizen of either Sherwood or Nottingham. So it is the world of Robin Hood, which I'm really freaking excited about. But it's a world that we're really trying to saturate, and I've gained a lot of experience from just seeing how players interact from the under, what times that they like to get on, like how much attention they feel like they deserve, and I'm trying to take that sort of information and bring it over to this experience. But it's gonna be really cool. Yeah, we got a really great feedback, and we're taking all that feedback and putting it right back in the site. But again, like, we're not a gaming company, and so making an immersive world online, it comes with like assumptions about gaming, and like, how do we speak to that? Like the under, we have all these rules and exactly how you can interact with the world, but when it comes to like an online world show, you can't be like, well, I can't open that drawer, but what does the drawer mean? What is the theory of the drawer? It's just it's so much less control and so much more control, and so that's what we're really working towards, and it's never been done like this quite before, but we'll hopefully share more information. But we're really trying to combine all these different elements and like bringing people all over the world as well.
That's cool. It's cool, right? They're bringing everybody from the world, not only as the audience, but as artists, that we're able to work with so many people. It's so great. Noah, you were saying.
Oh yeah, that got me thinking about, there's folks who are doing like fascinating work out on the YouTube space and doing things on TikTok and creating shared story worlds with their audience and folding it back in. Like, I was reached out to by some like folks making some musicals using those formats, and still haven't been able to like dig into it. And these are not necessarily ticketed things. These are kind of group projects. They're emerging narratives, and sometimes it's immersive and sometimes it's not. And there's just no limits to what you want to try and do. I think the big thing is, so long as you're trying to play with your audience, so long as you're trying to make something with them and not just something for them, then you're on our wavelength.
Yeah, I would say I love the word with. It reminds me too, John Armstrong, the magician from Magic Castle. He using this to translate magic to this. One of his key words was that connectivity, and with implies that connectivity. Whereas just presentation, all these old archive videos, all of that, you don't have that, and that's where I feel like immersive does have an advantage in some way of the storytelling, because you are, just by the nature of, like you said, the immersive actors rules, you are thinking with, you are playing these games with, and that's the thing these Zoom shows are missing. They don't have an interactivity. They're film. They're TV.
There's not enough time. Like, you can only get so much in an hour. And that's one reason with the experience that we're working on, it's episodic, because it's like when it's online, you have to earn people's time versus like when they just buy it. So like we're like this immersive experience that we're creating is actually going to be like 3 or 4 weeks long. And so you're guaranteed a number of hours of live interaction, and but it's episodic. So we'll probably do, we'll do season 2, but every citizen who contributed to that world, their storylines get carried over, and they are impacting the narrative and influencing the characters' moral questioning of themselves and their choices and things like that. And it's about play and letting them play and acknowledging that doing so well, and it's making all our experiences better, especially the creators. Like when people go in and they just give their whole selves, and they're just like, yeah, I commit to this. Yes, I take this as their given circumstances, and I'm going to live into it with the full capacity of my understanding of what you've given me. And it's a freaking blessing, and it's a community builder and an acknowledge of like, hey, I'm still a person, and I exist in this world, and there are people around me, you know.
Yeah, it's a big thing, and it's something. Let me ask you this too, and it's kind of a general question. Do you see all this, like once the theater's open, once it goes back into real life, and we return, what do you see that kind of effect? I know it's hard to predict the future, but do you think people love to do this? And
a while. I think.
Definitely that.
Yeah.
But let's say even 2-3 years. Let's say worst case. Once it comes back, do you see the work being in addition, or is everybody going to leave the online? I mean, virtual is going to remain virtual, but do you think people have enjoyed it? It's more than just a stopgap that people are now kind of invested in as the technology, like Noah said, Zoom keeps changing their program to make it better for live performance. So more people are doing it.
I think they're going to be more inventive. I think if we do go back to live theater in the nearer-ish future, that people will be like, we have all these new tech things we can do now. Yeah.
So just to look at things from the escape room world's point of view, right? Yeah. Which is part of the immersive mandate. Escape rooms are geo-locked, right? Like there's an Evil Dead 2 officially licensed room that's up in Seattle. And it's like the only instance of it. And if you want, traditionally, old days, if you wanted to go play that room, that officially licensed Evil Dead 2 escape room, you had to go to Seattle to play it. Now, in this era, you can book it online. They figured out a way, because they need to figure out a way to keep getting money through. You can book it online. And this is true for a lot of escape rooms. And some of the ones that are coming back with live in their area, they're still allowing people to book remotely. So it's going to be additive, and there's going to be some stuff, and there's even going to be things where, and this is what excites me in the long run, you're going to have things like a show like Eschaton, which tries to recreate a nightclub experience, a kind of very McKittrick Hotel feel over Zoom. Eschaton was originally planned to be some place that they wanted to maybe even have be open 24 hours. So instead of being a show, it was about the place itself. You can imagine a future where they finally get a chance to open the physical space, but there's still a digital shadow of it. Like there are cameras, there are ways to interact with it by remote, so that the performers who are moving around the real space and who are playing out their lives could be interacting with people who are there and present and buying drinks and making them a lot of money, and could also be interacting with folks who are coming in by remote and who are making them a little bit of money and subsidizing it and keeping it going. And when you start to look at stuff like that, frames of reference for it would be like, go get Andy Timoner's We Live in Public documentary, which sort of presaged the moment that we were in, right? So this was a documentary made back in the early Web 1.0 days. I think it might have been like the late 90s, or maybe really early 2000s. Like I think a lot of us were still on dial-up, and it's an absolutely fascinating thing that 10, 15 years ago looked like, oh man, look at these weird things these people were doing in New York in the 90s, and what a crazy stuff. They built a house and all these people were on video and people were watching on dial-up and like all these things, and then cut to now and Twitch and what we're doing, and it's like it was all there. Every problem with this stuff was all there in miniature, but that also means you can see where some of the things, the stuff that we keep coming back to, right? Those are the things to start designing for. Those are the things to start thinking about. This method and means that we have, it's not going away. We're all just going to we're not going to be intimidated by it, and we're not going to find it to be all that special. There's a lot of folks who are doing stuff right now. They'll drop into Zoom. This is one of my pet peeves when it comes to when people are trying to sell their work right now. It's like, yes, we're an escape room on Zoom, or we're an immersive theater piece on Zoom. Okay, what's your piece? It's on Zoom. No, what's your piece? Like, is it a comedy, a tragedy, a pastoral comedy, right? I can do the routine for hours. Like what? And they can't answer. Like they're so focused on it's on Zoom, and it's like, don't about Zoom. They care about whether or not it's a comedy, a tragedy, a pastoral comedy. Like they want to know how they're going to feel. They want to know what they're going to be doing. What's it about, right? That's what folks want. And if you're not articulating that, then people are just kind of going like, it's like treating it like it's a product, right? You're not selling an iPhone. You're selling a show. You're selling a feeling. You're selling a story.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that'll remain true, right? If you make a good story, a good experience in this thing, after we're all able to meet up again, people will do it. They'll totally do it.
I will echo story. I've been told that every marketing group, everything I go to, they don't care about the title, author, all that, the story. What, like you said, what's going to make you feel? And this is a wonderful new way. There are a lot of new ways, and new ways we're going to be discovering with all this. Let me ask you for a final question. I don't want to get this too long. We tend to shoot around the hour. But people have been playing with terminology, and you're talking about people saying, oh, it's Zoom. I'm doing Zoom. I've heard this referred to as live video theater. I've heard it as live virtual theater. And I'm kind of going in digital. Like digital to me seems very inclusive. So you can get podcasts in there. You can get all of this. And we're using it to kind of define what's new with theater. With immersive and virtual, is there any retermining this besides calling it Zoom theater, or this is just viewed as another media, the way immersive works? There's nothing really new. They just are doing more of it.
Yeah, I mean, we used to call these remote shows.
Okay.
Before times. So we had folks, I mean, because like that's one of the fun things is like there were people like Katelyn who, a beloved Hollywood Fringe performer who was doing shows on Zoom. She was also doing shows in her apartment, right? And she would alternate between doing shows in her apartment and doing shows on Zoom. Yeah. And by doing shows on Zoom, she could, connect anywhere. And so that was the remote category. And when we built Everything Immersive, when we built that website, we had a remote category. And then COVID hit before we released it. We're like, oh, we're going to need a few more categories. And so we had to divide it up. So, we talk about live stream. Like it kind of doesn't matter. Digital is great. I talk about the digital, but I talk about how immersive encompasses both the digital and the physical. Right. And so I think the tricky thing is this, right? If you're worried about how you're talking to your artists and to other creators and to some degree to financiers, you want to be concerned about how you're talking about it. People love to take the I word, immersive, and pour it on everything like it's sriracha, right? It's like, I'm going to kick up this show by making it immersive, baby. And it's like not, it's just like there's a chat window while you're watching someone recreate a Hollywood film. And the acting's really good, but also like the Wi-Fi connection's bad. So maybe I'll just watch the Hollywood movie. No offense. Not a good experience, right? Maybe really good acting and still but it breaks down worse than Netflix. Why am I doing this? And you're pushing the I word. I am subtweeting something right now. It's true. You're pushing the I word out to everybody, and maybe they've never encountered before. And they think, oh, that's what immersive is. Like it means like a bad connection to Zoom. I don't want to do that. Right. When the truth of the matter is, it's about the elasticity between. It's about that center of gravity thing, right? When you're selling your shows, when you're trying to make it out there, focus on the genre, focus on, I'm making a comedy, I'm making a horror. You can say it's interactive, set some expectations for the audience, right? That's smart. You're going to be doing this. What is the audience's role, right? Mm-hmm. Who are they in this world? If you can articulate these things to folks, there's a reason why we have the questions we have on the Everything Immersive site. It's because if you're thinking in those terms, you're going to be able to communicate over. And even then, people are still trying to do the bare minimum, and they're still really focused on the how they're delivering the content, because that's what they're obsessed with, and not the what it is and the change they're trying to make in the world. They're just trying to touch the tools and not push past and touch hearts. be aiming for the heart.
I love that. And I think that's true for online work, storytelling, all of that, wherever. That's wonderfully said, Noah. One last question. Katelyn, I started the show telling everyone that they could catch you as a regular on a VR show, The Under Presents. How do they find you? What's the little sneaky thing? You got something here.
I don't really want to tell everyone when, like, I'll be online, because people will find it and then I won't be able to see you because I'll get swarmed. I will get swarmed, and I want to give you the attention. But yeah, it's if you here. Everyone knows what an Oculus is.
We get a picture. I love it. See, this is why I love Noah. Old school tech. Oh, that's Oculus.
And so this is what you move. Yeah. Oh, you got the new one. Oh, cool. Oh, is it so much lighter? Okay. Yeah. Anyway, when you use these, make sure you get massages actively, because it is you're working hardware on your head. But yeah, you can buy the game The Under Presents, and it's $20. But it's not just like an open world. There is an actual like story that you can go that isn't incumbent on whether the actors are present. But I mean, there's a bunch of us. So if you go in and you hear something, just run in the direction.
Run in that direction.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We usually like find the players because we know that's why we're there. We're there to entertain you and for us
to host you through, to guide you through.
Yes.
Well, thank you both. First off, for spending some time today guiding us through this ever-growing world of immersive theater. And specifically, thank you for what you're doing in life in making this go. These are tough times. We are all going through it. Having that website and community of Immersive is serving so much good to people all around. Being a live performer where few are doing it, and being able to do that and connect and keep your art and gift going. It's wonderful. I know for us doing it to do it, but also for what you represent to other people and let them see, like, all right, we can do this, guys. Let's get through it.
We gotta. Here you are giving us a platform to come together and talk about and brainstorm and share the things that we are learning so we can all get better and get through this together.
That's it. And have some fun. It's just also good to see you both and talk. So thank you. We'll have a drink afterwards. Miles will bring us some cocktails afterwards in the back room. So hang around for that. For everyone else, we have just one show this week, but next week we are back with two amazing shows. We're going to be looking at stand-up comics in the US. We've already done one on UK comics. So stand-up comics with Dave Carter and Ro Schneider. And the other episode we've got going on is some more LA theater community. LA theaters just came together and put up a nice festival. So we're going to have some representatives from the LA theater scene talking about their pivot. But that's what we're doing to make it happen. Thank you guys for keeping it fun. I'll see you backstage. Miles, let's take it out. Thanks everyone for coming.